Welcome to the channel. I am Brad with Fine Tune, and today we're going to show you guys how to do timing chains on your N57 or N47 if you have one. So what we're going to do now is actually get the transmission off of this, and we'll get everything off the engine. We'll get the intake manifold off and everything. That way we could have good access to the valve cover, the back of the engine, and even the underneath side, the oil pan as well. Okay, so we have this locked at top dead center, but the cams are not in the correct position because this bolt is facing down. And when this is at correct top dead center, all of these you can access all of them. So we'll take this crank pin out and we'll turn it over one more time, and I turn this clockwise and we're approaching the top dead center mark and we're locked in. So now this is true top dead center because we could access these three E10s. So what we want to do now is we'll lock this up here in top dead center. And just to show you guys, this is kind of how much the chains have stretched. So this should be perfectly flush with the top. And we do have a little bit of wiggle room from the chains up here, but not anything too crazy. So now that we got that in top dead center, our next step is to remove this flywheel. This is 19 millimeters, so we'll take off all these. Now that the flywheel's off, we'll take out this reluctant ring and make sure you guys don't forget to put this on when you do everything, because the vehicle won't start without that. So now that that's off, we'll go ahead and start doing all these E10s on the oil pan. There's a lot of them, but go ahead and take those all off. Okay, now we'll pop this oil pan off. On the 535Ds, they actually have a gasket on the bottom of the oil pan, which is a lot better than the X5s in my opinion, just for installation. But the X5s have RTV all around the oil pan, so once you drop it, you will have to clean out the oil pan thoroughly and the engine block really nice. Next step is to take out all these E8 bolts here. So there's 11 of them right here. And then there's also 3 E10s that I already did up here. So you gotta take these 3 off and these 11 off, and that will give us access to the rear of the chain. And then we can pry this off. This is all you need to get access to the chains. You don't have to take off the cylinder head. I know the repair manual calls for that, but you don't have to do that. So our next step is we'll actually put the crank tool on here to lock the crank in, and then we'll go ahead and take off all these bolts here, pull off the high pressure fuel pump sprocket, we'll pull off this sprocket down here, and then we'll pull off this upper timing chain gear. The main issue for these is honestly this small chain up here. So this is a very small chain in comparison to like the crank to the high pressure fuel pump chain, and this is usually the chain that stretches here, and sometimes they could even stretch and wear out this gear and this gear up here, so you just gotta watch out for that. But let's lock up the crank, and over here we have our tool for this is for the N57 and the N47. So this is the tool that we use to lock up the crank, and this crank just helps for getting this off here so it's not turning, and getting this off here, and then just torquing down everything once all the new chains go in. So we'll put this 10 in here and we'll tighten it down, and then we'll get everything off. First things first, we'll do the oil pump gear. This is a right hand thread, so righty loosey on this. For this middle one, I'll just lock it in place. You guys might not have this pin, but a screwdriver will work, but I just wanted to get that out. And yeah, we can start taking off all these T45s right here. And I got all new of these. I got new guys, pretty much new bolts for everything. Somewhere on this guy, but it's honestly not too bad. This engine was actually decently in time, even though it's a little bit off. It was reading pretty good, but I just want to change the chains on that. This is actually going on a 328D wagon, so we're swapping the 6-cylinder into it. So we just want to make sure everything's all perfect on this vehicle before I drop it into another vehicle. From there, we'll go ahead and take this one off. I believe it's a 24 millimeter. So this is the upper timing chain tensioner. Another issue for these could be this chain tensioner too. So these can go bad as well. We'll see if this one stays in its place or comes out in 2 pieces. Yeah, this is in 1 piece. A little bit of wear on the tip, but it's not terribly bad. From there, we'll actually take those E10s out at the top. T45s. So this is the guide over here. And we'll take these T45s out as well. This is the other guide. Then we can take this upper chain off. Sometimes they're very droopy if they're really stretched, but this does have a little stretch to it. We'll grab this E8 here. This is the oil sprayer for the lower chain. And then we'll grab this tensioner out. From here, we gotta take off the high pressure fuel pump gear. And in our toolbox here, we have this special tool for it. So this gets threaded on here. And then we'll take off this bolt and it'll press itself off. This is the E14. Just pops off. Pretty neat how that works. So we'll unscrew that from here. And we got a new gear as well. And now it's time to take off these 2 chains. So we'll pull that center off for our crank lock. And we'll pull this chain off as well. On the top side here, I usually just take off this whole cam carrier. There is O-rings under here, and it's just kind of an extra step that I do. So we don't have any issues with like oil leaking down the injector bores at all or anything like that. What we have to do is we have to take off all these E10s and you loosen them up from outside to inside by half a turn. So we're just going to crack all the outside ones loose and then go down the middle and then get this whole cam carrier off. Should have all the bolts off of this, so we'll just pop it up and we'll bring it over to this table over here. And then on the back side here is normally these O-rings, and it looks like only one stayed with the whole carrier. And yeah, like I said, this is kind of optional, but I like to replace these just so you have a nice seal between the injector bore and the valve cover area. You just want to make sure you wipe the surface down too with a clean towel because you don't want oil to drop down in these grooves. What I do is I actually blow out all these before putting on the cam carrier. Okay, we got new seals here, and I just like to put a little bit of lube on them before installing them. That way they don't drop out when I install this. So we'll put all 6 brand new O-rings in, and then we'll get this cam carrier back in the engine, and then we can start doing the timing chains. And just make sure all these rollers are in their places and that they're not off. And then we'll start putting bolts in. We got all the bolts in. I'll just go ahead and tighten them up. The torque spec is 13 newton meters, and we start at the center, and we kind of do a crisscross pattern, like so. Now it's time to clean up these surfaces here. So I just got a carbide scraper, and we'll just go ahead and get off all this RTV here. And then what I like to do after this is I take a wire brush, a small one, a stainless steel one, then I just run along this whole edge here just to get the smaller pieces taken care of. And don't forget about these center sections as well. Okay, we got all the surfaces cleaned up. It's looking spotless. So now we'll go over to our table over here and we'll grab all the brand new parts. These are all the parts I got for it. These are all the timing chain parts. We got new gears, we got 3 new chains, we got some sprockets here, and new guides, along with some brand new bolts for our guides too. So we'll take all this and we'll go start putting some stuff on and get this engine back in time. All right, we'll go ahead and just put everything on first here. So we got the big chain on. We'll do the smaller of the big chains for the oil pump. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put everything on in its place, and then we'll just torque up everything all at once. Pressure fuel pump, this little notch here for this keyway should be pointing to that notch there. And we got a new bolt for that. And we'll put in the new oil nozzle. And for this one, you just want to blow off the surface here. Lock the crank again. So we can tighten up everything. All right, now it's time to torque everything up. Luckily for me, I made myself a little cheat sheet here. I'll actually post this up on the screen for you guys. That way you could easily reference torque values. So we'll start out with the bottom, and the oil pump, we'll start out with that. So it's 5 Newton meters and then 50 degrees. And this is left-hand thread. And actually my torque wrench doesn't go down to 5, but we'll just watch the value on the screen. And 5. Then we'll go to 90 degrees. Boom, 90. Now we'll just go ahead and mark that there. Next, we will do all the bolts for the guides, which is 20 Newton meters. This lower one. I believe these are all the same. Let me check. Yep, those are also 20. We'll just go ahead and mark all these just so that we know that we torqued them down. And then next up, we will do the E8 on the tensioner here and this oil squirter. And this tensioner is 10 Newton meters and this oil squirter is 8. Now we got to tighten up our high pressure fuel pump, which is 65 Newton meters. What we have left to do is these three up here and this tensioner in here. But before we do that, I'm going to pull the pin right here and tension the bottom. And then we'll go ahead and put the tensioner up here. And you just want to make sure that your cams right here is flush on both sides, which it is. So we'll go ahead and put that upper tensioner in. Nice and new. It comes with a new crush washer as well. And the torque spec for this upper tensioner is 70 Newton meters. All right, we got everything taken care of down here. It's all tight, it's all marked. So now our final step is to torque these down up here. And the torque spec for that is 17 Newton meters. All right, we got everything tightened down. The next step is we'll actually pull off this crank lock here. And then we'll turn over the engine a few times. And we'll put it back on just to make sure that it's all still in time. And when you're turning this engine over for the first time, you want to go really slow. If something does bind up, you obviously have the timing wrong on it. So we'll just go ahead and turn this over. Okay, we'll lock this back in place. And if everything's well, our tool should just slide right into place. And it does. So that means we did everything correctly on this timing. And yeah, from here, we have to put on the rear cover. And we'll do a new crank seal here. And then after the cover's on, we'll put the oil pan on. And then get the valve cover on and everything should be good to go. All right, we got new bolts here. The torque spec for these are 8 Newton meters and 90 degrees, so we'll go ahead and do that now. All right, those are all done. All right, these top ones that go down into the rear timing cover are 20 Newton meters. Okay, we'll go ahead and mark all of those now.
If you have a gasket that comes off your oil pan, you will definitely want to replace it with another gasket. Right here I actually got a different oil pan, and this oil pan utilizes RTV instead of a gasket. The height is different on it, so just pay attention to what came off your engine and do the same thing putting it back together.
All right, so on this side of the oil pan, we need to make sure that this surface is flush with this surface. That way the transmission sits on there nice and flush. So I just feel it by hand, and it needs to be shifted over that way a little bit to be flush. And right there, that's where I like it. So we'll go ahead and tighten it up that way. All right, we got all the bolts in. We're lined up in the back here perfectly. So now we got to tighten down the whole oil pan, and it's 24 Newton meters. So we'll start at the back bolts, and we'll just go around this whole pan. Okay, final step to this is we're putting the flywheel back on. So I got on top dead center with the crank pin locked, and we got brand new bolts for this because they do have some sealant on them. So we'll go ahead and thread these in. And then the torque spec for this is 120 Newton meters. Okay, so we got the oil pan on, timing cover on, the flywheel on, everything's all good to go with the chains. We're going to let this sealant dry for 24 hours before we put any oil in the engine. And then it's pretty much just wrap up everything else, put the cover on, the valve cover on, torque that down, injectors in, put the transmission back on, and you should be good to go. But I just want to show you guys how to do chains, quick and easy way with all the torque specs. Thanks for watching.